Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Lily Landakusik, and I'm the Director of Empowerment Counseling Services and EmpowermentOnline.org. And this is a presentation about our Empowerment Collaborative Co-Parenting Projects 4-week online course. And this presentation will focus on week 1. So this is for any professional or parent who is interested in improving the quality and outcomes of their co-parenting, whether it's in a state of crisis or, wanting to prevent noticeable or identifiable triggers or patterns. Wherever you are at that brought you here, we're hoping that this information can really help create positive change in your case or your work, or in sharing our mission to help forward the movement toward creating alternatives to litigation that help prevent the damages of the system that, by design pits parents against each other when parents really need help bridging gaps and overcoming trauma and empowering positive and preventative tools and protective tools. And our workbook goes over that. So this presentation will jump into the first chapter, and then it allows you to read through the next 2 chapters. And we'll have forwarding videos this week that go over chapter 2 and chapter 3. But this will jump right in to chapter 1. And this is about understanding the impact of family trauma. And this is so important because whenever we have a new referral, usually they are in a state of crisis and have very severe trauma symptoms that are usually associated with blocked access to their child or to their parental or constitutional rights. And if that happens over a prolonged period, we see very severe symptoms. And to be successful wherever you're navigating potential conflict in co-parenting, or conflict with your ex that's affecting your children or your life, it can be completely debilitating. And so it's so important to find out preventative information about trauma, because that's where the power is, in being able to predict and see into the future and how to prevent it, especially if you might be dealing with someone who has any mental health issues in the co-parenting system. It could be a grandparent or your ex or a step parent. But if there is a very negative or even abusive, manipulative, or even criminal influence, it's extremely important to understand and help unify everyone to stop any issues of trauma. And so these are the different key points in this chapter, and we'll cover kind of understanding the impact on families, children, short and long term, looking at your own trauma history, and being able to look at misdiagnosed or mistreated signs and symptoms of trauma that are very common in the family court system, like diagnosing someone with emotional dysregulation when really they haven't had contact with their child potentially for 10 months. We've had cases that haven't had contact with their child or access to their child for 3 years, 5 years, even 10 years. So imagine, that scenario of not being able to access your child and having no one help you. And so understanding this about clients helps professionals really take the time to help clients calm down and get organized and kind of get their head above water, because you're not going to be able to help them if they're drowning. And a lot of them are in a state of shock and PTSD, not sleeping, maybe self-medicating. And so they're in a state of chaos. And so it's so important when you're starting a case or looking at prevention of co-parenting conflict to look at calming down the conflict and getting organized, even if it's getting a client to get a box where they start to put their core orders, or going to the library and starting to print things, or getting folders or post-its. But a lot of times you have to get them to chunk down the problem, the crises, and start to take care of themselves and build foundational steps towards healing trauma, and then identifying it and preventing it in their family and with the children and with the court case. So when we talk about this program with the Empowerment Collaborative Co-Parenting Project, we really like to look at statistics. And I won't read all of these so that you can read them on your own, but the impacts of trauma from court cases can increase phenomenal negative outcomes like IV drug use, suicide, homicide, and even reduce the lifespan by 20 years. So it's very real. It's very important to understand our own trauma history because often it led or influenced where we ended up as parents or influenced some of the decisions we made in selecting a mate. If we have unresolved trauma, we could select a mate that is similar to our childhood trauma. This is very common, so it's important to be able to prevent childhood trauma so that the children don't end up repeating it and seeing multi-generational unresolved trauma. And that's what we find with the court cases. And that's why we want to help victims who are starting to get into the family law system navigate and get more proactive, preventative, protective, and get out of that system, especially if it pits ongoing processes against parents versus bringing them together, even court ordering a program that would force them to go into mediation and resolve safety issues versus litigate them. So, part of understanding your own trauma is getting healthy, ready, as optimal as you can in your life with what you're carrying, with your support systems, your responsibilities, and being able to start to say, I want to take the time to understand my own trauma history. How did I get here? How were some unresolved events influential in my life? How have I changed my coping skills because of my family issues? And how can I look at that and have it be a powerful understanding of why I'm like I am and who I am and why I do some of the things that I do, or looking at my children or people that I love in my life from a trauma perspective instead of a judgmental. And then this chapter you can read in detail more on your own, but it really emphasizes the quality of the parent-child relationship, that if you don't work on your own trauma, even while you're fighting for your child, maybe in a court case that has injustice, a lot of times your unresolved trauma can backfire and be used against you in your court case. You could have a client who's diagnosed with emotional irregulation, PTSD, and even though the court caused it, they can say, we can't let you see your children or be involved in therapy until you calm down. So it's very important to create a foundation of a winning mindset when you start your court case or when you start to look at your own family trauma, or how can I approach a co-parent who I've got conflict with, and how can I do it in a healing, loving, empowered way if we both have trauma. And if you're lucky to have a co-parent that you can talk to, or cases that you have where they can talk, you can often bridge them into this information and they can get excited about it because it gives them an opportunity to prevent what they went through to their children. And when they have help and they can see how to improve their communication, to create weekly emails, to create Zoom dinners or breakfasts that are inclusive, to create share folders and Google calendars so that everyone's included, and to have family meetings that check in with every family member. How are you doing? What can we all change? What do we like that's going on that we need to keep? And when these communication and family routines are severed in divorce and not recovered for the children, it can just be, extremely escalating in trauma to the point it's untreatable. So it can cause short-term effects in children. They can become aggressive, and this often can be misdiagnosed as rejecting a victim parent, or a parent who may be a victim of parental alienation or falsified allegations. And then sometimes professionals can misdiagnose and say, well, the child's refusing contact, when actually the child's refusing to be involved in the conflict like PTSD. They're rejecting the conflict. And if the abuser or the professionals associate the conflict with a victim parent, then it can completely just utterly destroy the quality of that parent-child relationship. For example, even if falsified allegations are found to be untrue, the damage to interviewing children and getting them to visualize these falsified scenarios, it's something you can't take back and would take years of a therapist really showing that that's mental illness on the part of the falsified alleger, and how to see that abuse can be someone you love. It can be a parent, grandparent, uncle, aunt. It can be someone from the church, a teacher. And we have to be able to recognize signs and fact check to prevent these symptoms. And upon parents, once a parent has become lost in the court system, they can become suicidal. They can become erratic. It's highly important that they get help. And it's extremely disturbing as a professional who's been committed to the mental health industry and working with families at risk for almost 30 years to see the complete failure to protect and enforce the laws and help these parents who are in crises, and they get thrown into a maze and loopholes and no accountability and no transparency and none of the trauma-informed protocols that we know work, and they've been studied now. So we know that when we don't use them, there are very profound long-term outcomes of trauma. And these are really helpful to read because it shows how it can spread to communities, families that may feel like it's not our family, it's those families. Well, then there might be a school shooting and the shooter was a victim of the family court system and severed contact and unresolved trauma that led to dissociative disorder, and then you have violence in our society. And so it does affect all of us. There's additional effects that are collective within our society long term in the erosion of trust and kind of putting our nation into a mental health crisis. And a lot of it, when you think about 50% of marriages end in divorce and then people remarry and divorce, there is a huge population of children that are from separated and blended families, and we're not talking about it. And we're not giving them the resources to thrive. And we're, giving them a complete ammo of falsified police reports, falsified DCFS reports, and court motions that can be weaponized. But where can you find a co-parenting specialist, right? You can find how many lawyers that'll help divorce, help try to get custody, how many therapists that will do that. But really, the outcomes are extremely poor. So victims often become re-victimized. So that's why it's important to start with your own trauma history assessment, really looking at what were the experiences in your past, being able to recognize your triggers. Most people who've been through the court get extremely triggered from a court email or a phone call from the court or a request from one of the workers in the court. And to be able to identify those and have compassion and start to get help for those, whether it's a program that you really engage in on radical self-care, meditation, working out, nature, service. But a lot of people don't have that luxury. Once they're in the court, they're mortgaging their house, they're working long hours, they're not getting sleep. So it's really important to understand that that system can escalate every trigger of trauma, and to get help and to acknowledge that you're human and a parent can only handle so much, and to look at any trauma related symptoms like self-medicating, not sleeping, engaging in distractive or disassociative behaviors, and helping professionals understand symptoms of trauma that could be misdiagnosed for bipolar or anxiety when really they're PTSD symptoms of trauma. And this is really important information for professionals that we're finding are often misdiagnosing. And then we have the ACEs quiz, and we have it for you to be able to take and look at your score, and it helps identify with your children as well. And then we have our action steps that we would like you to take a look at and answer on your own. And then the quiz is at the back of this first chapter, and then we can talk about scoring it. And just to be prepared again in using this model and manual is you might find yourself triggered, and I would try to prepare positive preparation activities and meditative closure activities after you finish with these chapters and saying, what did I learn? What did I become aware of? How can I apply that to my court case? In the beginning, we like to look at the mental health, the trauma informed protocols, the patterns, how to make our clients and anyone who's interested really optimized so that you've got a winning mindset. And then on your document prep, we want to add just brief supportive information to get organized. The same happens with your mental health, your home, your financial, your physical, your nutritional, spiritual, with your case, your children. You have to be healed to be really successful in healing your children and recovering damages, whatever that looks like. But most of us as parents, it's healing our trauma for the sake of our children, to be free from that harm and to be free from passing that on. And that you have a lot of control over. Even if the court has failed, the professionals have been corrupted, even if you've lost everything, there's a reason you're here right now. And there's a direction that you can go in that's healing, and voices that you can listen to in your head that are of people who love you, believe in you, and it starts with you. So that's what I want you to take from this first chapter is really invest in radical self-care to create a foundation of trauma-informed prevention so that you can be successful in the next stages of addressing co-parenting conflicts, family conflicts, court conflicts, and how to create and navigate a solution map. And then we can talk later about how that works into some of our forms and how we have mentors that can help people with their forms every week to reach out and let us know. But I hope this video helps you get started on this path, this 4-week, process, and helps you be able to kind of, uh, work some of this information at your own pace and individualize it. But overall, we hope it gives you, a comprehensive, holistic model and information that you can share with other professionals on why it's urgent. If there's a case of manipulation, crimes, such as custodial interference, slander, falsified allegations, blocked access, misdiagnoses, these are urgent and we should never normalize these. And there's been changes in the industry and the court system that may have influenced why there's a lack of enforcement, but we need to get back to that. And we're finding that some of these methods that we're doing are working. And the biggest thing is creating a team. So we want to be the start of that team for people that need help and keep you reaching out and creating your own team, getting organized for your own case, getting really strong with your mental health, getting a winning mindset. And that's it for this week. We'll see you next time. Stay strong.